And we are live here at TENTHUT. One more day, one more week. Uh, Want to introduce today a special guest, one of my dear friends. We were in college back in the day, did our undergrad together, and have been doing project management type functions for a long time. Daniel Fisher, give it
Hey,
give us a shout out.
hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks for the invite. Glad to be here.
So this is Tin Hut with a side of whiskey. And like always, cheers before we get started. We're drinking some good old bourbon today.
hmm
But hey Daniel, so I've known you for what now? About 6 years,
Yeah,
six, seven
6 years.
years. Yeah, back when we were over there, little scrubs, trying to get our education from exiting the military. We're both Air Force. Um, Before I get started, I gotta bring out to our listeners and our viewers and let everybody know that Pedro cannot be here today, and usually he heads up the show. Um, he his father passed away. It's a very sad news, and he's dealing with the family and had some stuff, but he really wanted to be here. But he has to take care of the family first. All right, so. Uh, Moving on from that, let's talk about what we came here to talk about. I know that's a little bit of sad news to say, but we got press on, try to help out veterans. Moving on. Um, so you currently, or tell us what you're doing right now. I mean, you're doing it big. I'll let
Yeah.
you.
So currently I'm a deployment project manager at Facebook, part of the enterprise engineering team. Basically, what that is we build out all the conference spaces and event spaces for all of Facebook across the world. Um, so I'm just one, of course, of many. Currently, right now, working on one project in Denver, one project Miami, one project in Sunnyvale, three projects in Fremont, and I think a couple other little small ones here and there. Um, so yeah, just been grinding. Been there for I just hit my 2 year mark on January 14th.
Yeah,
So it's definitely been a long journey. Obviously, as you know me for the last 6 years, been a long journey to get to this point.
yeah, definitely. And it sounds like you're doing right now national, right, project management, and
Correct.
I know Facebook's trying to do some international stuff too. Are you in the plans for that or?
Now, so I'm trying to. So right now we have a team. We have a team over in Ireland, and we have a team. I think we got a couple people in Singapore and a couple other spots out there. So they're handling like the Europe and the PACAF and stuff like that. Um, that area. Mostly my team here, as far as like the Bay Area and stuff like that. We're handling mostly like the United States and then also LATAM, which is South America and stuff like that. But mostly all my projects are either in Bay Area or it's in the continental United States.
Nice, nice. And tell us, I want everybody to hear the perks that employees at Facebook get because I know
Man.
you get like all kinds of cool stuff.
So it's dope is like, so if we talk about compensation, right? Like
Mhm.
we have your base salary, of course, and then you have your bonuses, which is minimum of 10%. And then of course you can get more depending on how your review season goes. Usually everybody's excelling and stuff like that, especially if you're being proactive. And then they also give you stock options. So every quarter they vest, it takes 4 years for that to vest. And then we also get a wellness package, which is basically $750 a year that pays for either like massages, gym memberships,
What?
hiking stuff, snowboard equipment, stuff like that. It's like the gym stuff I bought for the house. And that's every year. Just every year they get another 750. You just invoice them for it, and then it gets approved. And then also free medical, free dental, free vision. So we're talking about
Wow.
it's not no low end stuff. We're talking about like Kaiser Permanente, which is a big brand,
Yeah.
and then some of the other ones. And then I forgot who I go for like dental and stuff like that. But it's pretty great. And then if you're on campus, obviously everybody's remote right now. But if you're on campus, we got
Mhm.
I think the Bay Area on the main campus has like 7 or 8 restaurants, and I mean like fire food, like super good. Now you got
I've seen
pizza
your
spot,
videos.
you got
I've seen your
burger
videos.
spot, and we got arcades. We got an arcade at work. Like
Wow.
there's so much different. Every campus, of course, is different. We got gyms on campus. I think the Bay Area, like right in the same area, has like 3 or 4 gyms that are all on campus. So they definitely, really, really take care of us. I think they said like the average person spends, I forgot, like 10 hours a day just at work, even though their shift is already technically over 10 to 12,
Wow.
because there's so much activities to do. So they keep us busy on work and then also out of work. Because we see people that are there like constantly, like especially like engineers, they work massively long hours.
Yeah.
You'll see them like branch off, go to the arcade for a little bit, relax their mind, and then get back to the grind. So it's
Yeah.
definitely helpful to relieve that stress, especially throughout the workday period.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, when I was a project manager for about 3 years, and yeah, we didn't have any of that stuff, and they worked as like sometimes I would work 14, 16 hour days on a normal, and a salary, 5% commission or bonuses, extra bonuses at the end of the year, or sometimes quarterly. The pay was good, but at the end of the day, 7 days a week you're grinding, and so I know
Yeah.
typical PM and stuff, but what you get is pretty interesting. That's amazing. Uh, so how'd you get there? I mean, we did our undergrad in
Mhm.
project management, right? And you went a totally different way, and like I know you jumped from certain places throughout, and finally ended up with this gig. That's amazing. So how'd you get there?
So right before I finished my undergrad, I got hired at a company called Acclarent, which is a Johnson and Johnson company for medical devices. I started off as a project coordinator there. Ended my contract with them, went to another company, became another like junior PM there,
Hmm.
and then did that for a little while. Really didn't work out. Like I was literally working like 17, 18 hour days, 6 days a week, and
Wow.
it was just horrible, horrible. Um, so finally got bounced out of that company, moved to Vegas, and then this is where I tell people while you're waiting to get a job and back in your field, especially in a
Hmm.
new city wherever you're at, do
Yeah.
what you have to do to make money and pay your bills. So I
Yeah.
was like, I got a job at Cosmo, being a busser at a pool, worked at a restaurant for a little while, and everybody's like,
Wow.
this guy got 10 years experience in the military. I was taking massive interviews. I'm a people person. Interviews are basic to me,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't great fits for the company. But I ended up landing. I had a guy. He was a retired, I think, chief in the Navy. Hired me for his company as an estimator for an engineering company.
Nice.
Did that for about a couple months, and then they kind of went under. Bounced from them to a engineering manufacturing company. Started off, that was like my big break because it was like I have finally all the skill sets because estimating I really never done like on a real project. So the estimator position helped me. And then
Nice.
I already had I managed projects on a smaller scale and stuff like that. And then I moved
Yeah.
over to this company. They hired me as a PM to basically build out their project management office. They never had a PM in their company before.
Yeah.
So me and another guy built it out for them. Was there for about like 8, 9 months, and then I don't know really know what happened with their money and their budgeting, but
Hmm.
worked multiple projects with them across the board. Learned what I could there. Ended up becoming a senior PM for their company.
Yeah.
Even though it was still kind of like early stages in my career to even get that title, but because I was like literally proving myself to be there. And then once that kind of went away, and I was like, all right, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do next. Then I started applying to places, and then Facebook came to knocking. I applied to them, I think 3 times. The first time I never heard back. Second time they told me I didn't get the job. And then third time, I guess,
They
was a
call you.
charm.
Yeah.
Because but by the third time I did it, I went through it. I had the estimator position. Now I have the senior PM slot that I've worked.
Yeah.
So it added on to my resume more, and it just kind of spoke for itself. And it's also important the way that you write it to
Yeah.
make sure that you're hitting like all the minimum requirements. The number one thing Facebook tells us, because I work very closely with recruiting,
Hmm.
especially for hiring vets, is make sure all the minimum requirements are written somewhere in your resume because
Yeah.
that's the first thing they're looking for. If that's not there, they're automatically just tossing it away.
Wow. Yeah, and I used to work as a career coach when I first got out of the military for veterans, and that's the big thing. It's like a lot of people just want to have a general resume, right? And then they want to just put it all out there. if you really want a job, you need to go and look at the requirements and make sure that your resume is tailored to their requirements. That goes for anybody, and you'll see how much you'll start getting them calls. And sometimes recruiters will just hit you up. Your general resume should be out there for public view, right? Just make sure you don't put your full address. Don't put any like important information, of course, on your resume. But that general resume should be out there for recruiters to be reaching out to you. Right. But one thing that because what I want to talk about is getting veterans. A lot of veterans have hit me up a lot because I'm a PMP, right? But what I tell a lot of veterans, and correct me if you feel totally different from this, the PMP is not necessary. Like I see it as a requirement more with the IT jobs, and I mean we're not IT project managers, but I see it a lot with the project managers that are in IT that require that PMP. I have the PMP and I'm a black belt Six Sigma, right? And it just seems like the Six Sigma actually I have used, but the PMP I just don't. What do you recommend? I mean, how do you feel about it?
I feel like it depends what the culture of the company or industry you're trying to get in. And obviously, like you said, a lot of IT companies are like required PMP.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies try to hit you for it. I think most of the Facebook PM slots they say it's like basically like it would be nice, I guess, to have it. But it's not a requirement. I think I know maybe one person that has it that I work with, but it's just one of those things like, hey, it's another, ding on your resume, is a positivity thing, but it's definitely not necessary. I tell people too, I think the biggest thing, like even like us, we have our undergrad in it. I think, hey, it does help. It opens up doors to have that degree. But I have project managers I work side by side with that are part of my team that they have just extensive amount of work history in project management. And a lot of people, that weighs so heavy. Like the degree part is just, hey, they went through the process of getting their degree and they were dedicated for a certain amount of time, which actually says a lot also. But for the people out there that just like, hey, well, I'm not a school person. I really don't want to go to college, but I have the extensive background in it. Companies are looking at you, because that speaks volumes too. When you have those, that 7, 8, 10, 12 years and stuff like that, and even more, especially when you can sit in an interview and you can really talk about you can really talk about project management. They're not worried about the credentials as far as certifications and degrees, to be honest.
Yeah. The degree, I've always said, I have a crap ton of freaking degrees and certificates, and I'll talk about how I got those here in a bit. But it's just pretty much a stamp that you learned it. That's it. And that's how I always put it. It's just the stamp. Some degrees are required for certain. For lawyer, you have to go and get your JD, even though it's not a requirement, but it is a requirement. Like I don't know how to explain that any better. Like you want to be a doctor, you got medical doctor, you have to go through your medical degree and then get your boards and all that stuff that you got to do to get that. So there are some degrees and certificates that are required for specific things, maybe jobs that just require that. But by the way, everybody, PMP is Project Management Professional. That's a certification that is offered. I'll tell you that test is no joke. They like isolate you into they make you lock up your cell phone, just like if you were taking a GMAT or GRE, if you're familiar with that. For graduate programs. So that's what the PMP stands for. And because we were talking about it and some people might not understand what we're saying. But you were telling me the other day, and you were talking about it slightly about, you're in the recruiting team now, right? You like kind of like a collateral duty, right? And with Facebook.
Yeah, I would almost say like I'm a liaison or something. Like I don't work directly for recruiting or anything like that. I'm not part of their team. I'm just a veteran that works at Facebook that they're very heavy on trying to hire vets and stuff like that. So anytime they have events or anytime they got boards and they want somebody to come and talk from my perspective, my background, what veterans are looking for and things like that, I'm at every single one. I told them invite me to everything, because I think the biggest thing, especially once you make it to a certain pedestal, it's like I know how the struggle was for me to get here. I
Yeah.
know what veterans go through. You know, I've been homeless before and stuff like that in my process to get here. So if
Yeah.
I can reach back and say, hey, let me help some of these veterans, let me at least pass this information out or be active with the people that have the power to at least get you in front of the hiring manager, then it's something that I have to do, you know.
Yeah. Definitely. So what website do you recommend veterans to go look at jobs at? Like how do you even go look at, Facebook jobs?
So there is it's I think it's facebook.com/jobs.
So
Uh
Facebook.
yeah, it should be facebook.com/jobs. Let me make sure I can say that right.
Let me throw it up in
Yeah,
the chat. Yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah. Facebook.com/jobs.
All right.
And that basically has you can pick like the region you live in. A lot of positions right now are remote. They are hiring people who are like for remote positions, permanent remote positions. Facebook has started an initiative that by 2025, like 50% of their workforce, the direct hires will be remote working.
Yeah.
That's just something they're kind of doing. So for people that live out in remote areas, for people that live out that just don't want to like leave their cities, there are positions out there for you. And especially for veterans. So last year, 96%, I think it was, I'm trying to think of the numbers. I just looked at them for 2020. So 96% of veterans that got put in front of management as far as like going in for interviews, 96% of veterans were hired at Facebook.
Wow.
So for
Wow.
so the ones
Yeah, I
that
need to
made it
look
in
at
front of the
working at
manager,
Facebook.
yeah. So the ones that got placed right in front of managers and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I think it was like 96% of them was the last numbers I looked at, and
I want to
so
I want to know what that 4%, why did they not get hired?
it's either you'll be surprised. So we just did an event I think like two months ago. It was like a board of discussions on how to get
Mhm.
hired at Facebook, what they're looking for, things like that,
Yeah.
and I think it was like 87%, 88% of people said, hey, they're interested in looking into jobs with Facebook. And
Yeah.
then there's the other 20 something percent that said they're not even interested, which to each his own, you know what I mean? Like maybe Facebook isn't a great fit for you or what you're kind of looking for. One thing too is with Facebook, with Google, with Amazon, and a lot of these other like big tech companies,
Yeah.
is they're not only tech. Let me
Yeah.
repeat that. They are not only tech. I think a lot of people are like, hey, they're only tech. I got to be engineer, stuff like that. No,
Yeah.
there's so many other positions. It's just like how the military is. Militaries, we're not only just shooting people and flying planes. You
Yeah.
know, so,
That
so
that
uh,
jan that janitor job sounds pretty appealing right now, especially
yeah,
with your
hey, janitor,
cafeteria.
yeah, hey,
Your cafeteria, man, you get free food, you get shoot,
yeah.
man.
So even like when you think about it, even if you're not directly working for, say, Facebook or something like that, there's still contract positions that are still paying wonderful stuff that got great benefits, and it's also your kind of foot in the door, especially if you want to come across and bridge that gap. It's the same thing like contractors for the government. You know, if you want to bridge that gap and go into the actual GS side or the WG side,
Yeah.
the best way to kind of get in is start off as a contractor and work your way in if you don't have a direct contact.
Yeah. I work for the government, right? And I work other stuff, but with the GS, I always tell people like don't hold yourself down because you're in school. I know it's difficult to have a job, but there's jobs out there that well in the government, if you're trying to get into the federal government eventually after you finish your degree, don't hold yourself back from taking a job. A lot of these jobs will help you actually get your degree or help you in the process. One,
Mm-hmm.
and the second part is that you got your foot in the door. It gets harder once you have that degree because now you're going to be applying for bigger GS levels. And at
Mm-hmm.
that point, they're like, well, you don't have the experience in the below grade, right? So don't be afraid as a veteran. I'm telling you right now, don't be afraid to get your foot in the door. And most of these jobs, if it's advertised as like 5, 7, 9, that means that every single year you're going to promote from 5 to 7 to 9. And I mean, you really got to mess up really bad to not get passed up for promotion or non-recommend
Oh
for
yeah.
promotion. You really got to do something really, really, really dumb. Uh, as long as you do your job, you show up to work on time, you know, just the normal stuff like any other job. Show up, go to work, do your job, and without doing any extra stuff, you're gonna get promoted, and that's the big thing. And then after that, if you hit the cap a grade for that position, then you got to apply for uh, a position, the next level. So after 9, if that's a cutoff, then you got to apply for 11. And hopefully you're getting a job that's 11, 12, 13. So that way you can promote every single year.
Hmm.
And then at 13, you do 1 year that, you can apply for 14, yada, yada, so on. So till you get, to SES or whatever you're trying to get. Of course, the degrees do play a major role with GS 12, 13, and 14. You have to have certain degrees for some of those, and 15 and SES you have to have. But it'll be in the requirements, right?
Hmm.
You used to work over there where I'm working now, but in a
Yeah, yeah,
different area.
yeah.
With
I was on the WG side back then. Yeah, that was
okay,
right when I first got out the military. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, but don't. Another thing with that, don't stop writing your resume. You know, I make it a point that every single Friday, I update my resume with something that I did exceptional, and then I have a working resume with like about 20 pages, so that if a job says, "Oh, we need an estimator," well, I did that back in this time, boom, and I could throw it in my resume, my working
Hmm.
resume, right, or my posted resume. Um, but don't ever stop, because what happens is you forget. I forget everything, so I have to write everything. People, the importance of writing things
Yep.
down so you can recap. Oh yeah, I remember. Okay, I did this. Yeah, I did this, and it matches with what I got, right? So every single Friday, I take 10 minutes of my time. 10 minutes is not that long, to refresh your resume. How do you do it? I mean, do you think it's the same thing?
Yeah, so what I do is, so mine's a little different. Like I have my resume structure built out. And basically what I do at Facebook, I really haven't wrote like, the summary stuff and itemized
Yeah.
it. But what I do is like I can write that like that paragraph pretty easy.
Hmm.
But the thing I do is I have an Excel spreadsheet of every single project I've ever worked on, with the budgets that they were, with the budgets
Yeah.
they ended at, how many rooms was it, how many square feet was the building. So it has all that information. So if I ever decide like, hey, I'm gonna start looking for some other positions outside of Facebook or even within Facebook,
Yeah.
I can basically take this information, itemize it, and then just put it in paragraph form, and I'm good to
Yeah.
go. So it's basically like you said, like if I would try to think back on like what did I do for my first project,
Yeah.
I would have no idea. But it's great. The biggest thing with a lot of recruiters look at too is that itemized information.
Yeah.
Hey, how many projects did you do? Like, what were you trying to accomplish? What was the outcome? Stuff like that. One thing I do want to recommend to a lot of vets too is because like we come from a teaming concept, right, in the
Yeah.
military, and so it's always we did this, did this,
Yeah.
we did this, we
You got to
produced
step
this.
out of that. You
You
got
got
to
to
step
step
out of
out
that.
of that, and you have to
Yeah.
say I did this,
Yeah.
because even though it was we, you're still part of we. But it's
Yeah.
I did this. They're only interested in I. I
Yeah.
did this. I produced this many numbers, or I
I
estimated
led the
these.
team. I led the
Yeah.
team. Yeah.
So it's like, you got to step out and just, allow for yourself to shine. So when you think of like doing interviews, or when you think of when you're writing your resume, like be conceited basically. Like basically like talk about like pump yourself up, make
Narcissistic.
yourself
Yeah.
look good. Yeah, exactly. Then that's how it has to be. Like it's a little difficult for some people, but that's what you got to think about.
Correct. Yeah. And that's the big thing and that's the biggest hurdle that I had with veterans when I was working with them with resumes is, oh, I don't want to like over embellish myself. It's like, no, you have to be able to sell you're selling yourself to a company,
Exactly.
to be able to say, well, why should I take him over him, or her over him, or whatever, whatever your gender is. But
Yeah.
it's how it is. I'm not going to hire, oh, this guy, maybe he can do it. I'm not, as a hiring official, I would never say, well, I think they might be able to do it. I want to know what you can produce for the organization, because, turnover and all that stuff is very expensive for companies, and that's not what they're shooting for. They're shooting for you to either stay in that position or promote within and grow with the company.
Mhm.
So that they don't have to waste more money on orientations, on bringing you on board, on for you get like all your fresh brand new laptop. You were telling me the other day, your brand new iPhone 12 before it even came out.
Yeah, so that's one perk too. They hook us up with all the technology we need to do our job. So
Yeah.
one thing I definitely want to say too, like you're speaking on it, is being a military veteran, especially whether it's a large company or whether it's a small company that you're going into or a partnership you're going into with somebody, is you are always labeled veteran. They're
Yes.
always going to look at you inside that company as veteran. So
Yep.
one thing, whether you like the position, whether you like the company or don't like the company, give it your all, because
Hmm.
what's going to happen, especially within these smaller companies that really maybe don't really hire vets or really never had the opportunity to hire vets, to say you're the first one. If you do a horrible job, that's going to put a sour taste in their mouth from hiring any other veteran.
Yep.
So make sure that whenever you step into those positions, especially with smaller companies, because they may not bump into too many vets, is outshine everybody if you can. Do your complete
Yep.
best, even if you like it or not. Do your
Yep.
complete best so you can open up that door for the rest of anybody else possibly trying to come behind you.
The crazy part is that I always tell people, don't burn your bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere you go,
Mm-hmm.
you should be striving to put out the best work that you can put out, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
because people will remember you, and don't think that somebody's not going to call one of your references and then think about, oh, well, you did that job, can I have a reference for that job? And you don't have anybody because they hate you because the way you were you were being a crappy person. You gotta always maintain good relationships with people. If it doesn't fit for you, I, I've been in two positions now that I did not like. I felt like, wow, this job does not fit my principles. The type of environment is just not my type of environment. And I moved on, but I kept relationships with that company. And at the end of the day, when I left, I gave them, hey, you know what, I really want to thank you for the opportunity. It just the I'm moving on to something better, or moving on to something. I'm taking an opportunity, whatever. But always be appreciative, humble down. Make sure that people understand that as a veteran, you gave it your all. It's just might not be for you. Uh,
Yeah.
but it happens. It happens. One of the big things, if you do decide to do a PMP, you can always go to a American Job Center. A PMP is really expensive. They can for a boot camp is like what, 4 to 7 grand. Um,
Yeah, I've seen a couple that PMI. I don't know how what it is now, but
yeah,
I know when
PMI.
we were back in undergrad school, I
Mhm.
remember I think they like PMI was offering a couple like 3-4 day boot camps or something like
Yeah,
that. I think they were starting off like 1500-1600 bucks, but
yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
that was 4 years ago.
yeah.
So
No, they're still it's still up there, man. It's still like a
yeah,
couple. It's 2 grand right now. And on top of that, when you do PMP, there are requirements yearly that you have to do. You have to complete PDUs, professional development units, right? So you have to do 12 seminars, and each seminar is usually about 100 to some are $800. Depends what you're doing. Usually the IT ones are super expensive. Some companies that require it will pay for you to go to these seminars, one, and then they'll pay for you to retest if it comes to that time. But
one little small loophole that you can get PDUs on is usually your local chapter will have like meetings. I used to be
yeah,
part of the Orange County chapter, and they get PDUs for showing up to these meetings. It's not like a massive amount of PDUs that like you show up to 2 or 3 of them, you think
yeah.
you're going to be good for the year. No, like it's like 1 or 2, I think it is units. But you still have to at least, I think it's like one conference you at least have to do per year to be able to get those numbers, because nothing's worse than like doing all this education, passing it, getting your certification, and the next thing you don't hit your PDUs, and then you lose your certification.
And then you lose your certification. Yeah, that no, and you don't want to lose it because the test is very very difficult. I'm telling you from experience. I took it twice. The first one I failed, and the second one was when I passed. But it's a very difficult and demanding test. Definitely touches on all the elements. The PMBOK is our Bible, right? That talks about all the structure of being a project manager. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up was that whenever you taking a job as a project manager, if they require for you to maintain PMP, you need to work that into your negotiation when you're negotiating your salary for them to cover your PDUs, because if it's a requirement that you have maintained that certification to be employed, they have to make sure that you are maintaining the requirements as well. So don't be afraid to ask for stuff like that. Whenever you're negotiating your job, if it's not required, then guess what? You're just gonna have to pay your PDUs to maintain your certification, and just do it. Right now, it's all virtual too, so I mean, it might be a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, I've seen people too. For the people that are out there that are either working in the project management field or kind of just getting started. Years ago, I had a friend of mine that used to live in the Bay Area, and I think he was making like $75,000 a year or something like that, being a PM years ago. And as soon as he got his PMP, his boss like got whiffed of it, and his boss called him in the office. Crazy story. He actually thought he was going to get fired for whatever reason. But his boss calls him in the office, and his boss is like, "Hey, I heard you got your PMP." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, that's great." He's like, "That's a good thing for the company." He's like, "We're going to boost your salary," and they boosted his salary by 50 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about that certificate. It's definitely worth it. But one big thing for veterans, if you are not ready to work past the 9 to 5, PMP might be very difficult for you, because I remember getting calls at 2 in the morning. 2 in the morning, something happened at a job site, and you got to respond. You got to respond right there and then. Being on vacation, hey, this is going on, and I'm taking a phone call right in the middle of freaking gondola ride out in the Riviera or something. The money's there, but it's just like you're never ever off. It's like constantly, so you got to be ready to respond. Your salary, definitely, if you're putting out good numbers, they give you good bonuses, but it's definitely not for a person that wants definitely not for a person that wants the family values a lot more than the job. So consider that definitely when you're considering to become a project manager. What I use. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I know that's like one thing that like Facebook tries to do, that work-life balancing. And for most PMs that I work with personally, all of us are all the same. Like it's just, it's 24 hours,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I preach to any project team that I'm ever working with is I'm a 24-hour, 24/7 DPM. You guys can get a hold of me pretty much anytime, period. Because it's one of those things like, you may be able to put certain stuff on the back burner here and there, but eventually it's going to kind of catch up to you. And eventually you want to stay on top of your stuff, especially if you want your projects to kind of coast out, because nothing's worse than letting that project kind of coast out. And then now you're trying to capture it back up again. And this could definitely mess you up in the back end and start missing projects. And that's not okay for business either.
Yeah, that's not good. You start losing money that way,
Yeah.
Time
and
is
then trying to explain it
money.
is no bueno.
Time is money, and everything's your fault when you're a project manager. Like, I don't even know how they do that. How they build that wall. Like, that's your problem.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. Learn it. Yeah, so you got to be pretty much a jack of all trades. Be very organized and scheduled. I know they say multitasking does not exist, but man, somehow you end up like an octopus doing all kinds of stuff.
One thing too is with our field is never be afraid to ask questions. That's one thing I definitely learned early on. Is my boss, she's always like, I remember you sitting next to me, and she's like, every day I would ask you, how you doing with your first project? Oh, everything's good, everything's good. And then one day she could see the steam coming out of my head, and I was just like, yo, here goes a list of things I don't want to understand. You know what I mean? Pulled them into an office, sat down for a couple hours, went through everything, and then now, it makes me better. I've been there for 2 years now. I still ask questions. There's stuff that pops up that are just from far left field that I've never had to deal with. And I'm like, how should I approach this? How should I do this? And that's the whole point of like, whether any company you're in, there should be some type of form of leadership that you can go to seek out information, or even the same thing. Like I've sat on the phone with Will for a couple hours and talked, project management stuff. But things I'm doing on my project, stuff he's doing on his projects, and so it allows for you to have a different approach and a different perspective on stuff that you're working on. So it's always great to have friends that are in the same field as you, whether it's people you work with or people outside of your work. I think it's really important to have people outside of the company that work for different companies because it's a different perspective and stuff like that on how they operate with the project management field.
Yeah. Hey, one thing. So requirements, you have to have 1,000 hours for a PMP as a project manager. In the military, you were managing projects left and right. You can use your military experience as a project manager. You just have to submit it correctly. So did you do scheduling? Did you coordinate any type of functions, events? All that stuff counts as project management. It's all part of project management. Read the PMBOK, and if it kind of is similar to something you did in the military, boom, throw it in there. I did 1,000 hours of, or 200 hours of this, 200 there. Accumulate 1,000 hours of whatever. That's pretty much 6 months, right? What is it? 1,020 or 1,040 is 6 months of full-time work. So just think of that and what you did in the military, how you coordinated certain things, and you led teams into whatever. That's all project management. So use that. Is that what you did? Did you use your?
Yeah, because like I was logistics management, but it was literally they should have just called us project managers.
Yeah.
Because it was literally we had a budget, we had a scope what we needed to complete, we had a
Mm-hmm.
budget, and we had a schedule. So
Yeah.
the three things you're gonna need for any project. We had it, and then it was just managing the teams and stuff like that to get out there and make this stuff happen. Instead of one thing, what I tell people the easiest way to do it is look at any mission you ever did, right?
Yeah.
Like for what we used to do logistics for aircrafts, every
Yeah.
aircraft had its own mission number. Each mission is a project of its own. They all have a budget. They all have a scope what needs to be completed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so when you start to look at it like that, change mission, the word mission for project. And
Yeah.
that's it. It makes it very, very simple after that. So that's
Yeah.
the way I looked at it when I was like applying for from my PMP when I was actually going to take it.
That's a really good. That's a really good concept. Replace mission with project. It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I used all my drill instructor or military training instructor in the Air Force, the drill instructor, drill sergeant in the Army. I used my hours of teaching, and they didn't even come. Sometimes they'll come back and ask you about certain things. They didn't come back and ask me about
I
anything.
had it happen to me once. I
Yeah.
think I applied for it twice. They came back once and was like, we don't know what this means. And because it was such a military terminology, that all I had to do was just go back and rewrite it, and then they understood it. So,
Wow. Well, you know what, Daniel? I had a lot of good. I got to speak to you. We talk to each other all the time, but this is really good that we're able to get out and talk to veterans. And I love the stuff you're doing at Facebook, trying to boost
appreciate
up
it.
veterans in Facebook. You might have me applying over there, just so I can
Hey,
get
come
the
through.
jarritos.
Hey,
I can get the jarrito sodas from your cafeteria. I see on your videos all the time.
yeah, man. Hey, they treat us well, man. It's a massive company. I know there's a lot of PM slots that are open. There's a
Mhm.
lot of other slots. So any veteran that maybe not even looking for a project management position, there's so many positions open. Like it doesn't really matter. Like it's a global company. So
Yeah.
whether you're here in the United States, whether you're overseas somewhere and stuff like that, whether you're looking for something remote, there's positions for it. And even if you're not hired there, there's also a lot of like we said, a lot of our contract companies that do a lot of great work with us and things like that.
Yeah.
So like I said, get on there, see something that you like, make sure your resume is prepped for it. Practice, maybe doing the interview with one of your friends or something like that. The interview process, I would say, is a little lengthy. I went through 6 interviews before I got hired. I think I did like 4 interviews one day, back to back to back to back.
But they flew you over there, right?
Yeah, so the interview process goes like this, right? At least for my position. It may be different for every position, but basically what happens is the recruiter reaches out to you, and there's actually a specific team that actually works with veterans at Facebook. So one of the recruiters will reach out to you. They'll do a small little interview on the phone just to kind of get a feel for you to see what your personality's like. Facebook is huge on personalities. So
Yeah.
it's basically like, of course, everybody has different personality types. Like engineers or most engineers are more introverted people and stuff like that, and then you have extroverted people that do like the recruiting and a whole bunch of other stuff. But we have every different type of personality type. But it's one of those things like, is this somebody that we can kind of like fill out that's going to be work great with others and things like that to try to build this company up, especially with the core values we have. So once they kind of fill you out, they ask you like a couple questions about the job criteria, and then they'll either get back to you or they tell you right on the spot, hey, we want to pass you on to the next person, set up another interview. They'll set you up with probably one of the leads or something for the team that you're getting hired on. They'll interview you, and that's a little bit more granular, more technical. And then for mine, I had 4 more interviews, and each interviewer had different parts that they were specifically interviewing me for. As far as like, I do project management, so it's basically different concepts and different situations and things like that, depending on who I was talking to. So it's one of those things. The biggest thing is just be yourself. I would definitely say, study up, especially in our industry or any other industry, study up. So when you sit in these interviews, you really know off top of your head what you're really talking about. Because even though you might have I've been in this industry for over 12 years, I understand project management, but some of the terminology might have slipped my mind because we
Oh
don't
yeah.
use it every day. So it's one of
Yeah.
those things you want to at least go in there and understand that stuff. So always do the little refreshers and things like that.
Yeah.
But once I passed the second interview, they are like, hey, we want to set you up for the final interview. We're going to fly you to the Bay Area. They may fly you to some other part in the country or wherever it may be for your interview process. Most of them are going to the Bay. And then you sit down with 4 people. And basically the concept of that is for them to be able to, one, show you the campus, show you the culture of Facebook, show you like the area you may be working in and things like that. So you can grasp the type of idea and see, because one is, it's not only Facebook interviewing you, it's you interviewing Facebook, or you interviewing whatever company you're talking to. So
Yeah.
remember, guys, the interview goes both ways. And
Yeah.
one thing I always recommend is also going into interviews and having questions that you really want to know about the company, the team that you're going to be working under, the management that you're going to be working under. Have those questions, and maybe if something doesn't feel right or just doesn't, appeal to you, then maybe the company or whoever you're interviewing for maybe is
It's
not right
not
for
for
you.
you.
Like I
Yeah.
said, it goes both ways. It's not only
Yeah.
them interviewing you; it's you interviewing them also.
Yeah. I've got job offers, and I'm like, hey, like I appreciate the time that you took with me, but I'm gonna have to pass, and it's because I just didn't feel like I connected with them when I asked the questions. Like, what is your type of environment, and what your day to day, and how do you do stuff. So yeah, I mean, for some people, Facebook might not be the thing. I guess if you don't like. Jarritos from the fridge.
Hey,
uh,
if you like free food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if you like free gyms, free medical, then it's pretty much. It almost feels like a military concept, but
except
it's
you get
like,
ski gear. I saw your
yeah.
new snowboard, man. You're like,
Hey,
oh,
shout out to
you
Facebook.
know, shout out to Facebook for the new Facebook gear for the new.
Hey,
Does they have Facebook at the bottom of your new snowboard?
hey, I
Your
should. I'm
sticker?
just gonna get a stamp and just put a sticker on it. And just
Okay.
hey. But
Might as
yeah,
well.
one thing I really love about this company, right? And a lot of like big tech, like Google, I think a lot of people said it's the same thing. Is like military is wrapped around like they have everything really in house. Like when you go to
Yeah,
a military base, they have everything that you need.
everything. Yeah,
Facebook's really not to that full
housing.
extent, but they literally have majority of the stuff you need. You know what I mean? As far as getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner, getting your laundry done. They have laundry places there for
Wow.
dry cleaning. Man,
Jeez.
like the list kind of go. It's bananas. Like it's literally like almost like a college
You,
campus. That's what it feels like. It really feels like a college campus, but you're with a whole bunch of like
but
super
you get
smart.
paid instead of paying.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So
Hey,
yeah.
do you have a hammock under your desk?
Nah. We do have a thing called a quiet room that you can actually go in there and go take a nap. You schedule it out. We have these little room tools, and you can literally you clock it out for an hour. You go in there, close the door.
Oh
Nobody's gonna
man.
walk in on you or anything like that. Nobody's gonna come bother you. This ain't like the military. You try to hide under the tarps and stuff, try to take a nap while you're in the middle of work. Nah, it's
when
funny
you're
because
in the freaking mop gear and you like go over there and freaking hang your hands on a freaking aircraft and just
yeah,
protect.
exactly.
trying to
or
get a
going
nap
to
in.
an aircraft, like the mechanics for the aircraft will go in the aircraft, close all the doors and stuff, be taking naps in there. I'd be coming in there like, what are y'all doing? Now, the quiet room, the whole purpose of it is because some of our people really work these super long hours, or even like the people that are working really stressful jobs. It's a place where you can kind of, well, even if you just want to go take a quick 10, 15 minutes, relax your brain, chill out, listen to some music, whatever,
Oh man.
it's there for you.
Yeah.
So
Hey, do you mind, Daniel, if somebody reaches out to you on Facebook, like shoots a DM or shoots you on Instagram?
yeah, just go ahead, hit me up on Instagram. It's dfish48 on Instagram, and I think my Facebook is facebook.com/dfish48, or it's dfish239, one of the two.
Okay.
But yeah,
All
shoot me a message if you guys are interested in coming in Facebook, or you guys any other advice, whether it's with anything really with veteran, whether it's VA information and stuff like that. Um, just shoot me a message over. I'm very, very responsive. Like I said, my phone is on my hip 24/7, so I'm always answering people back.
right. Yeah. And likewise, if any of our watchers today want to reach out to me because you forgot Daniel's IG or Facebook, you can reach out to me, DM me, and I'll connect you. It's not that hard to. And I'm
Yeah,
on the Tin Hut Facebook page. So our show is Tin Hut with a side of whiskey. And today, because this is what we got thrown at the end now, I am drinking some Stillhouse provided by Mr. Kenneth. You remember Kenneth?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Nate?
yeah,
Nate,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Nate got me this. Nate got me this as a housewarming present on New Year's Day, and I finally got to try it. It's really good, pretty smooth. It's a little on the stronger side. It's a black bourbon. It's got a little bit of a bold flavor. It's the best expression I could say. We're today drinking some of that. So thank you, Nate, for the great bourbon. I love bourbon. So
Oh, yeah.
uh, I want to end it up and thank you, Daniel, so much for being on the
I
show. I
appreciate
hope a
it.
lot of
Appreciate it.
veterans are able to see this tonight or later on our and subscribe to our YouTube channel on Ten Hut. And it's two words, Tent Hut. And make sure that you subscribe. And hopefully you get some good feedback from this and learn some stuff about how to apply for jobs, some resumes, and how to become a project manager, the requirements for a project manager, and of course getting hopefully into the Jarrito clan uh, Facebook. Uh, and if you friend Daniel on Instagram, you'll be able to see all his videos of the campus there at Facebook. It's pretty amazing. Didn't you have like a turkey too before I leave?
Huh?
Isn't there like a wild turkey that runs around the campus?
Yeah, so in Fremont campus in Northern California, they have like these wild turkeys that run around. I remember the first day I got to work, I seen like three turkeys hanging out, and it's like, I was like looking at them like, what the heck is going on over here? Yo, them turkeys will chase you. So if you see them, run. Yo,
Run.
they jumped the fence into like the cafeteria,
Oh
like,
man.
picnic area. Yo, I don't know how a turkey jumps like a 15-foot fence. It's crazy, but they
All
do it.
right. All right, brother.
All
All right.
right,
So
man.
if you want to see those turkeys, go ahead and shoot them up on or hit them up over there on Instagram. Till next week. Hopefully, Pedro. We got you in our prayers. You know,
Definitely,
uh,
definitely.
we love you, brother. Till next week. Peace.
Appreciate it, guys.